Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Reinsurance Podcast. I'm your co host, Jared Lee.
And I'm Ben Rose. And we have a special guest with us today. We
do.
have Jonathan Kimber, the chair of the Under-35s Reinsurance Group, or the London Under-35s. How would you frame yourself?
The Under-35s Reinsurance Group.
Very good.
Yeah, we are London, and there are equivalents in Bermuda and New York. So,
Well, welcome to the podcast, sir.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, excited to go on a journey of discovery for a group that's been actually quite important for us as we set out our company as bringing, some of the younger minds in our industry together to think about where they wanted the industry to go when we were in the early days of thinking about, what Superseed needed to look like. So,
I think it'd be fun. There's a ton of talk about how we attract young people to this industry, but I think as you're sort of tasked with leading that charge to some degree here, how did you first land in this space? What was your sort of journey into reinsurance?
Right. So, I actually studied law at university and had a training contract set up and was unsure whether I really wanted it. I did a practical course in a module in my final year, and it was pretty tough, and it made me think about what I wanted from my career and other options. And I came across a internship at Lloyd's Syndicate and went and worked there for a month, I think it was, and then off the back of that was offered a role. And yeah, that's how I came into insurance. I was impressed with my time there, and I think it completely changed my perspective on what I thought the insurance industry really was. I mean, I initially, first thing that came to mind at that age was, well, car insurance and home insurance, and what else is there? And obviously I was very, very wrong.
What were you doing there instead, I guess? What was your first encounter with non-motor and non-consumer lines?
So I was really fortunate, and during the internship I had a rotation around claims, legal, various underwriting teams, pricing, and so I think I did a bit of a whistle-stop tour of all the specialty lines and risks that come into London. Obviously marine, which is the foundation of the market. It was really, really interesting and really eye-opening.
Yeah, brilliant. And then at some point in this journey, you found what we at least think is the best part of the industry, the reinsurance world. How did you end up migrating into reinsurance, I guess?
Yep. So during my time at the Lloyd's Syndicate, I worked across, again, multiple lines and ended up working within the treaty teams. And I think that's where that opened up another whole can of worms, which is reinsurance. And after spending 6 months, that was all where my career went after that.
And you ever looked back? Or?
No, I haven't actually.
Yeah, there we are.
No one does.
No.
Once you get once you're in.
Stuck.
But now you're tasked with sort of finding the next generation, recruiting that talent, and getting them excited about the industry. How did you first get involved with under-35s? Obviously, you're chair now, but what was that? What did that look like?
Good question, actually. My first involvement must have been, I mean, it feels like a long time ago now. It's not. I'm still very young, but it would have been a winter party. So the under-35s put on sports and social events. They put on networking events. They put on training and education events that I can speak about later. But it would have been one of those. And I think then I heard about the under-35s, what other events they offer, and went to the underwriting seminar that we put on. And from there, started to meet more people that did more within the under-35s. And then I found out that you could be on the committee and put myself up for nomination to the committee. And I think, again, from there, haven't really looked back.
Yeah, I guess what we haven't explained is that whilst Jonathan's, this very, very important role, the chair of the under-35s, you also have another job as well, which is full-time treaty underwriting, right? So, so there's a lot of work, presumably. So thank you for making time to come and record with us.
No worries.
Yeah, we do want, I think one of the main things we want actually from this episode is for people to hear more about the under-35s and learn, what it is and what it does. So what would you describe, I guess, as the purpose of the under-35s? What are you there to do?
Yeah, so the purpose of the under-35s is to provide networking and educational opportunities for young professionals in the market, and then we're there to represent young professionals in the reinsurance industry. We offer, we're a non-profit organisation, And everybody, the 16 committee members that run the under 35s are all volunteering their time, as you said. And we are looking to continuously, I guess, diversify what we can offer to young professionals in our market, to engage with them across all of throughout their career, but also to, again, as we spoke about before, attract people into the market and keep them in the market, because we want London to be the specialty insurance center of the world. And I think it's important that we, again, attract people into the market, and we train them and knowledge share, and we strengthen their relationships and their network. And that is our core objective.
Amazing. And I guess beyond that, that's what you're doing now as well. We were chatting a bit before we came on air about the history of the group as well. And you said, I mean, I should say before that, this is a rather special year for you guys as well. So do you want to maybe share a bit of the history and where we are today in terms of?
So this 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of the Under 35s group, which is crazy. I mean, 50 years of a voluntary committee continuing is I think really impressive. And initially, yes, it was set up in 1972 by Julius Neve and John Lindsay. And today we do a variety of events. But initially, it was set up as a forum for young professionals to meet senior leaders in the market and ask them questions and have a debate and sort of as a Q&A session. And then as that got traction and they attracted more members, they then diversified what they were representing and offering, and then started to introduce. So the underwriting seminar I've spoken about is a 2-day away training seminar. So we have two senior leaders in the market that will run through property and casualty underwriting and experience modeling, and there'll be project groups put together, and you're given a case study to go away and price and present back to the group. And so that was something that was quite early, set up quite early. In 1975, the first educational trip went to the US. So the educational trip, for those that don't know, is a 2 to 3 week tour of a particular territory, or I say country when it's the US, just because there's so much to cover. And the purpose of that trip is to give, again, young professionals in the market an opportunity to do a whistle-stop tour of a region, of a market, and meet clients, meet brokers, meet third parties, meet claims adjusters, and there'll often be a site visit depending on where the trip's going to. So for this year, it's going to Houston, Nashville, New York, Bermuda, and San Francisco.
Oh, amazing. Wow. Need them to visit Logan on the way.
Yeah. We've got some super seed colleagues in the US. They could swing by. We'll add it to your list.
Yeah.
Add it to your diary. I mean, it shows a significant commitment from the industry to sort of back this, not only with the time of yourself and the other 15 committee members, but the investment for these firms to pay for their younger staff members to go on these trips for a few weeks.
Yep.
To sort of get inundated with all manner of the different regions and geographies and things that are the products that are being pushed in those areas. When did you sort of see that adoptions begin to shift? Has that changed under your tenure a little bit, where you're seeing like the commitment from these firms to do more of this?
Since my involvement with the under 35s and being on the committee, it hasn't. And I think that is one of the things that keeps the committee alive and enables us to do what we continue to do. And I think that essentially comes from the strength of the relationships that the under 35s facilitates with the events that we put on, with these trips that are very unique. I think it's it's a very unique situation to go away on a whistle-stop tour of a territory with 20 to 25 other people from your competitors or from clients or from brokers, and spend that time together. And people always say that have been on one of those educational trips, you make friends for life, and it sounds a bit of a cliche, but you really do. And I think what I certainly find, is that, as you said, it's a lot of support from companies within the market, and sometimes that's driven by people that have been on the committee or have been on one of the educational trips, or have been have done the full suite of events that we do and really see the value in it. And so we're very grateful for the continued support. And I think, again, the more people that then go, they see the value of it, and then they once they get into positions of managing or being budget holders, they sometimes put that to the top of the list, which I think is really great.
That makes sense. Prominent alumni who can
Prominent alumni, exactly,
and support you again.
And I think that's why, you know, it's important for us to be relevant. You know, we can't just sit back and think, well, we've got the support from people that have been before. We do need to make them relevant, and yeah, I think it's really positive that we could, and especially this year, so 50 years, we're doing a anniversary ball, which you're both coming to, I believe.
Yes, we are. Yeah. Very excited.
Yeah. And well, we've got 900 attendees to that, which is again, it's crazy that there are 900 people in the market coming to celebrate with us, and we're celebrating them as well. You know, our members, our alumni, ex-chairs, ex-committee members, ex-educational trip delegates.
I think that really speaks to the scale of it. The fact that you know, 900 people is not the membership, right? That's the number of people who were available on that day to come to this event. Right?
Yeah.
What sort of membership levels are you seeing now? Like,
ironically enough, a similar number. So current membership, obviously, you know, membership is open. It's free, and it's open to anybody that works in reinsurance in any function. And the under 35s is, you know, it's not strict, but you know, we do have people come to our events that might maybe a 35 or slightly older. But
I try to limit my my attendance now. I've passed the window by which it's acceptable, I feel, but I still sneak in for things like
no, definitely do,
and stuff.
But I think we have something like close to 1,000 members on LinkedIn, and then we have our website and mailing list that people subscribe to, and that's how they hear about our events and you know, buy tickets to whatever we're putting on. So I think it sits around the 1,000 mark, but obviously people then, you know, they move on, and then we have a new intake of grads or apprentices coming into the market, and that number keeps growing.
That's amazing. Well, talk us through some of these events as well, because I know I've been to a few, but our listeners might not have and might be interested to get involved.
And jealous.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'd break the committee is broken down into some subgroups within it. So you have the chair and the deputy chair. We have a treasurer who manages all of the accounts, and then we have the training and education team. So they run 3 to 4 lectures a year, typically in the old Lloyd's Library. Some of them we've done recently, which are virtual.
Yeah, it must be good to get back into the library after all the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, we've done 1 or 2, but I think with them being virtual lectures, we actually get a much higher level of engagement. You know, it can be difficult for people to commit an hour at lunch to come along on a set day, and so we do. You know, the good thing about it being virtual is that actually it's then recorded and it's available for people to view later on. So we do 3 lectures, and they'll change each year. They'll be centered around maybe an insurtech company or maybe a topic in the market. Something like inflation would be relevant now. We have the underwriting seminar, which I've already spoken about. And then more recently, we actually launched a mentor scheme. So this was launched during COVID when everybody was working from home. And the mentor scheme is we get our alumni or existing committee members to mentor new entrants to the market that have sort of 0 to 2 years experience. And we felt it was really valuable for us to do that, especially with people working from home and not being in the market and out meeting people at the other events we typically put on. And it's almost a bit of a buddy scheme as they come into the market, and you've got somebody that's only freshly just been through it and through coming into the market and providing them advice on however they feel they need advice. And so we set out a structure and a program that they can follow, but they're also more than free enough to go off piste. And so we do that, and we're actually about to launch a senior mentor scheme, which is aimed at mentees with maybe 5 to 7 years experience, and then we've got a handful of more senior people in the market. Maybe they've got 15 to 20 years experience, and we're going to offer them a mentor scheme because we found it's been so valuable to the grads or the apprentices coming into the market. So that's training and education. And then on the sports and social side, we do the bike ride, which you came on.
Indeed.
So that went from London to Windsor. It went from London to Brighton.
The first year, we've done 2 years now.
2 years, and more recently London to Windsor. There's a cricket day, a golf day. We have a winter party. And again, off the back of the pandemic and people coming back into the city, we had something like 450 attendees at the last winter party, which was
Mm.
more than we'd ever have had
Yeah.
pre-pandemic.
They ran out of beer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I
at
think the
one
bar,
point.
the bars did.
As in, it was so popular. As in,
Yeah.
there was plenty, but
Slightly unprepared there. We
too successful.
do sometimes do a summer party, a quiz night, you know, just some fun things for people to get together. And I think, again, those events are really great from the networking perspective. You tend to see the same faces, or you'll see somebody that you went to a lecture with, or was on the same underwriting seminar as you. And again, a pretty unique opportunity for young professionals to meet their peers and meet other people doing their roles.
Well, and I think it's really interesting, the mentorship scheme along with the relationship building, because in this industry, there's a huge amount of mobility between and amongst firms, right? People who start from an underwriting side and go to the broking side, or vice versa, or people who bounce around different firms looking at different products. Those sorts of exposures and that sort of ability to meet new people and be familiar with other companies that are in the market is quite unique, I think, to our industry, because you rarely have it elsewhere that people sort of intentionally collaborate with people who are at competing firms, because it's in the subscription market, you don't really have it where there's a winner and a loser. It's everyone sort of sharing deals, and in this relationship building is super, super important. And I think when you come into the industry and you get exposed to these types of events, it's a really exciting way to sort of get to understand and experience what is quite unique about our industry, which is, I think, why people find it so compelling and stick around once they get into it. How do you see, so you mentioned you have, maybe this was before we started recording, but there's the under 40s as well.
Yeah.
Where do you guys work with them? How do you think about sort of the global effort to engage the younger professionals in our industry?
Yeah, so there's I'm not sure where the 5-year gap in age came from, but there's the under 40s.
It's the youth of London.
There's the under 40s in Bermuda and the under 40s in New York, and I actually don't know too much about the foundation of those two committees, but they run in a very similar way in that there's a voluntary committee and they put on events. I think, as you just were speaking about, the challenge that, especially in the US, they have is that there's, you know, two hubs, I guess, Chicago and New York, and actually within New York, the proximity of brokers and insurers isn't as close as it is in London, and it can take them 60 minutes to go and see a client. And so we do have that on our side in terms of everybody being so close to each other. In terms of collaboration with them, we actually last week did an event around the world in 60 minutes. It was a virtual seminar, and we each had a speaker so we had a speaker from London, and they had a speaker from Bermuda and New York, and spoke about topics relevant to each of our territories at the moment. And so we collaborate in that sense. What else have we done?
I remember we did our virtual event a while ago. This is the pre-pandemic days. And it's funny, the way that the New York offices are spread out actually played into that quite a lot as well. So we did the hybrid, what was Riskbook, the sort of MVP of Supersede, come and try and test it. And we ran it as a hybrid in-person and virtual event with you guys. And I remember London was easy because we just hired a huge room in a pub, and then Jared was trying to optimize in New York for somewhere that wasn't too far from Willis, and it wasn't too far from Aon and GC, but was somewhere in the middle, sort of, and so we were running around all over the place trying to get everyone there.
We catered in sandwiches because we couldn't pick a big enough venue and stuff, and then you guys had this massive
we had a party in London.
Party at yours, Then everyone went back to work at mine, so it was.
Oh, that's true. You were at lunchtime, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you had the better option.
We carried on until there was no wine left, I think, in our case. But.
Do you think they'll you mentioned Bermuda, big reinsurance hub, New York, big reinsurance hub. No APAC sort of committee, no young professionals APAC group is.
There might be one, and we might just be ignorant.
Ooh.
In which case, please do tell us.
Message us in the comments.
Yeah, I'm not aware of one. I think I'm not aware of one. But there would be no reason why, that should absolutely happen, I think.
It almost feels inevitable at this point. I think you've outlined just the tip of the success of the under 35s iceberg, where not only is its longevity, but the sort of backing of the market. It would be shocking if the other sort of major reinsurance hubs don't spin up something at least similar in effort in the coming years. I think attracting young people to our industry is a constant talking point amongst the senior leadership team. So, it would make complete sense. What are sort of the other agenda items that you guys are looking to sort of deliver on as you sort of plan the duration of this year and into next year? How do you think about growing it in terms of membership, in terms of activities or engagement? How do you sort of evaluate what you guys want to do next?
I guess there's two parts to that question. The first is diversification, in that typically the under 35s has been seen as a bit of a broker underwriter, or it's been perceived that way. It hasn't been, and it is inclusive to everybody. But I think in some of the nature of the events that we put on, something like the educational trip, not every function would get a sponsorship to go on something like that, because it may not be relevant to their role. But if you are a broker and an underwriter and you're underwriting that region, then it makes complete sense for you to go.
So, like
Obviously,
a
that's
claims
not
professional, for example, might be someone who might feel like they wouldn't go on something like that.
potentially.
Sure.
Interestingly, we actually have a claims professional going on this this trip this year, which I'm really happy about, because I think that we should encourage that as much as possible. And so I think diversification across functions, because actually it's not just, well, it never has been, but it's certainly not now. Underwriters and brokers, you have analysts, you have actuaries, you've always had claims adjusters and claims people. So I think if we can try and encourage them through the door more so, that would be really good. And I think again, this is something that we're looking to do into next year, is try and get claims people on the committee, so they can bring to the conversations and the meetings we have every month, what should we be doing to open the door, or the door is open again, but to encourage them to attend our events, and maybe we tailor some of the events so they are more attractive to those functions. Because they are growing in number, and they're just as relevant as underwriters and brokers. So I think that's one side to things. And another thing is, we've always got the challenge of how do we tell people who we are as soon as they join the market. So we have a LinkedIn group, and we have social media, we have a website, but you have to subscribe to that in order to know what we put on. And so we've always battled with, how do we, as soon as somebody joins a grad scheme or is an apprentice, that they know about the under 35s. And normally it's through word of mouth is how they come across. So that's certainly how it was with me. I was in the office, and somebody would have said, do you want to come to the winter party? And I'd say, yes, fine. But so what we're doing, and what we've already started to do actually, is go direct to companies and say, when you have your grad intake or your apprentice intake, can we come in and present who we are, what we do? It's beneficial for companies because we offer free training and education opportunities that we offer them. They can add that to their list of benefits, and their training and development program internally. We're doing it for free. Some of them are paid, but obviously it's all managed and facilitated by us. So I think there is a mutual benefit to us doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's one of those things that easily gets lost, especially, as you said, during the last pandemic we've had. But making sure that young people know how to network in our industry is key, because I think it's very easy for the senior members of our industry to look around and say, this is a people business. Relationships are so important. You're as valuable as your relationships, as much as your skill and knowledge in some ways. But then if you put that pressure onto the up-and-coming members of your team, and you say, go out and get relationships, like, where do you start?
Exactly.
You get a knock on somebody's office and walk into their reception and say, hello.
Can we hang out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody got a gap in their diary that just wants to, especially with other companies, right? You can meet people at the water cooler in your own building.
Yeah.
It's very hard to meet somebody without a critical, urgent business reason from another company without this type of initiative. So,
and really, when I actually started getting involved with the under 35s, I wasn't working at a Lloyd's syndicate. I was working at a company market, and so I wasn't in the Lloyd's building. I wasn't sat at a box next to another syndicate. And I think from working in both markets, I do feel that when you work within Lloyd's, you do get to know a lot of people a lot quicker. But from a company market perspective, obviously, as you said, it's by the water cooler, and you hear the odd name here and there. But I think the under 35s has been great for that as well, because you are meeting your peers, you are meeting your competitors in a way that you wouldn't working at a company market. So I think that again, for me, is why I wanted to join the committee at that time, because I wanted to broaden my network, and this was a great opportunity to do that. So
yeah, definitely. And I think we haven't planned a kind of analogy battle like for this episode, but one analogy that does come to my mind here. I mean, if anybody comes up with a better one midstream, we can do a spontaneous battle. But it does feel a bit like a kind of a dating agency, but in a really positive way. That's a horrible way to put it, but like not only do you guys, as a committee, give people an excuse to get together, but even after that point, you tend to find a common interest that they can talk about instead of work, that they can avoid being like corporate to each other the whole time. If you're interested in cycling, or there's a charitable cause that you have a passion for, or if you're particularly interested in something academically, or you want to do some training, all sorts of topics that you might be able to spend a long time talking about with somebody, getting to know them properly, that mean you don't need a business critical reason to talk to them. You can talk about golf or cycling or
I think that lack of agenda is one of the most compelling ways you build relationships anyway. But you're right, if you were a junior underwriter at an XXL, like reaching out to someone at MS Amlin or someone at Hiscox, like to get coffee,
what do you
without
about?
without an agenda, or it would be very strange. But this opens up that environment to, as you said, be cycling, be at the cricket, have some space just to ask them what kind of area they're working on, things that they're seeing, what's like, and just build that relationship in a very sort of organic kind of way, but within the confines of an industry, I guess, to some degree.
And I should add as well, it's for me especially, this is quite funny, I'm not especially well versed in any of the things typically that are put on in terms of these events, and I don't want people to feel scared to go if they're not like for example, I've got zero cricket knowledge. I'm a very average cyclist. I can just about hit a golf ball, but I go along to all of them because there's always going to be other people who are in the same boat. So we were on the cycling ride, I remember, a few weeks ago, and there was definitely a group of people who were like, I see you've got this insert piece of cycling equipment that I didn't know the word for. Yeah, that's amazing. And they were they were getting on like a house on fire, and that was brilliant. And then I looked around, I saw the other people who were like, what did they just say? And I'm like, here's my friends. And you end up having loads of good conversations. So don't be intimidated to go along and just join something you've never tried before as well.
And I think, to that point, with the golf day, we do a beginner session, we do a more experienced session, and we do always talk about, okay, if you're not into golf, you're not into cycling, there's been mentions of a netball team. I think there used to be a football team. We talked about going to the polo and just trying to put something new on that is going to attract somebody that may have not gone to the others but will go to these. And so the more ideas, the merrier, really.
We could do that. Could have been the game for this episode. Come up with the next under 35s strange event,
like a Dragon's Den pitch.
We could do one that came to my mind. I have this self-aware, working with an American who is the most self-aware American I've ever known. Jared very much knows all of the UK.
It's a low bar. I'm just apologies to the American.
But because you've lived here for so long and you've got your citizenship effectively, all this sort of thing, like all of the UK impressions of an American person. I'm gradually catching up in reverse and understanding all of the sort of American impressions of a UK person. So what I was going to suggest, for the amusement of our American audience, is that we hold an under 35s Quidditch event. Please don't actually do that, but who knows? It could be fun.
I mean, you could do it in Clapham. There's the whole Saturday Quidditch League in Clapham.
Is there actually?
Yeah.
I've been missing it.
If you go there it's like Saturday mornings, you'll see them running around these pitches with the brooms tucked between their legs and throwing.
Is there a physio in Clapham that specializes in like
Quidditch injury?
Quidditch related. I mean, it doesn't sound very ergonomic, does it?
It doesn't.
Without the power of magical flight.
No. Yeah, exactly. Have yet to crack that one for sure. But yeah, that would be one option.
What events would you guys go to? A brand new one that doesn't yet exist. Any secret interests that you'd?
Because the social engagement piece is super important. So you couldn't do like the theater or something like this, because it has to be something people can be out and about. And pub crawls are a bit too rowdy, and I think it would end in a bit too much debauchery.
You could do the theater potentially, as long as you had a get together before and afterwards.
You needed time before.
I
think spectator events are quite good. Where especially, I think that's why spectator sports has always been quite popular, because you don't need to be quiet. You can talk whilst the game's going on. So I think things like rowing or watching, the polo is another one, which could be.
You should do the NFL in London. So it's a weekend event though, so people have to go out of town for that. But everyone would be asking the same questions. what are the rules of this stupid game?
Yeah.
Well, there we are. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have an idea for an event, feel free to get in touch with Jonathan or
Definitely,
with
yeah.
us, and we'll send it his way.
And the way it works is you have sponsors as well who sort of pick up some of the tabs and help put the events on and things. So if you wanted to book a bunch of tickets, it's
We don't have sponsors in London.
Fine.
I think some of the other committees that we've spoken about do, but no, we are, again, we're a non-profit, but
Yeah.
any of the events that do have a cost to them, they may be ticketed.
Oh,
so
fine.
something like the cricket would be ticketed, but it would just be
the
base
expense
cost.
back or whatever. Sure,
Exactly, yeah.
sure, makes sense.
And you should expense that, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's for your development, your career development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm sure. I think most companies do fully support that as well.
Yeah,
So it's
definitely.
very, very cool. Well,
And if
Jonathan,
you don't, we're watching you.
Jonathan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. And any other? Do you want to give any other plug outs to the under 35s upcoming events?
No, I guess just obviously we've got the 50th, which is a great year. But if you are, listening and you're not already a member, then please do join. We've got I said the senior mentor scheme coming up. We have a winter party that will go ahead later in the year, our debate, and so there's always something going on, and everything's on our website to sign up to. So
Very exciting. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks
No
very
worries.
much.